What if I told you that the most successful pop group in history, a band that sold over 400 million records, never officially broke up? No announcement, no farewell tour, no goodbye. They just stopped. And the real reason why is far more heartbreaking, far more human, and far more complicated than anything you've ever read in a magazine. Stay with me, because one part of this story will genuinely surprise you. Stockholm, Sweden, 1972. Four people walk into a room and change music forever. Agnetha Fältskog, Björn Ulvaeus, Benny Andersson, Anni-Frid Lyngstad. Together, their initials spelled ABBA, and together they would become the best-selling Swedish act in history. But here's the detail that made ABBA unlike any band before or since. They weren't just bandmates, they were two real couples, living together, loving together, creating together. Agnetha and Björn married in 1971. Benny and Frida married in 1978. Two love stories, one stage, one microphone pointed at the world. It was beautiful, it was unique, and it was always going to be fragile. April 6th, 1974. Eurovision Song Contest. Brighton, England. ABBA performed Waterloo, and the room never recovered. They won. Completely, decisively. And that one night launched four people from Stockholm into a level of global fame that almost no artist in history has ever touched. What followed was a decade of dominance. 8 consecutive UK #1 albums. Hundreds of millions of records sold across every continent. They became one of the first non-English speaking groups to own the English language charts. Not compete on them. Own them. Waterloo was later voted the greatest Eurovision song of all time. Their music defined the 1970s. It didn't just soundtrack a generation, it became the generation. 400 million records, 2 couples, 1 dream, and everything was perfect, until it wasn't. Here's something ABBA fans have always known, even if they never said it out loud. Listen to their early songs, bouncy, joyful, overflowing with light. And you're hearing 2 couples genuinely, deeply in love. Now listen to their later songs. The Winner Takes It All, Knowing Me, Knowing You, One of Us. That's not fiction, that's confession. By 1979, at the very peak of their fame, when they could sell out any arena on earth, Björn and Agnetha separated. Their divorce was finalized in 1980. The world was stunned. The golden couple of pop music falling apart in real time, but the band kept going. And that decision would cost all 4 of them more than they ever admitted publicly. 2 years later, it happened again. Benny and Frida, who had only married in 1978, separated in 1980, divorced in 1981. Both couples gone within 2 years of each other. The two-couple image that had defined ABBA, the warmth, the togetherness, the sense that this group was built on something more real than a record deal, was gone. And this is where everything took a turn. Now picture this. You have to go to work every day with your ex-partner, sit across from them in the same studio, stand next to them on the same stage, sing songs you literally wrote about your relationship. While that relationship exists only in the past tense, that's what ABBA tried to do, and for a while they managed it. Their 1981 album, The Visitors, was serious, mature, critically respected, but anyone who listened could hear it. The spark that had made them ABBA was quietly going out. People have debated this for 40 years, so let's just say it plainly. Reason 1, the emotional weight became unbearable. Working daily with an ex-partner isn't just awkward, it's a slow, grinding kind of pain. The chemistry that made their music electric came from their personal connection. Once that connection broke, you couldn't fake it in a recording booth. Either it's there or it isn't. Reason 2, a decade of relentless work had drained them completely. Tours, albums, press, promotional trips, television specials, photo shoots. Since 1972, the machine had never once stopped, and machines eventually break. Reason 3, they were becoming different people. Björn and Benny had fallen completely in love with musical theater. They were already building what would become Chess, a full West End and Broadway production. Their creative ambitions had moved into entirely new territory, and Agnetha and Frida were discovering, for the first time, who they were outside of ABBA, outside of their marriages, as individuals, not as one half of something. The split wasn't an explosion. It was a slow exhale, a quiet fade, and by 1982, it was over. Their last performance was December 1982. No announcement, no farewell speech. They called it a break. The break lasted nearly 40 years. And what happened next? Nobody, not even ABBA, saw it coming. So where did four of the biggest stars on the planet disappear to? Björn and Benny did exactly what they'd planned. They created Chess, earned serious respect as stage composers, and proved that their talent had always been bigger than any single genre. They were architects, not just pop writers, and the post-ABBA years gave them the space to prove it. Agnetha went solo. Her music was deeply personal, emotional in a way that made perfect sense once you knew what she'd been through. But she had always been the most private of the four, and after the split, she retreated further. Here's something most people don't know. Agnetha suffered from severe anxiety and agoraphobia. The fame ABBA brought wasn't only a gift for her, it came with a cost that was real, daily, and exhausting. She eventually withdrew from public life almost entirely. Not bitterness, survival. Frida moved to London and reinvented herself completely. She released solo albums produced by Phil Collins. She was bold, polished, and absolutely determined to be seen as her own artist. She later married a German prince and walked away from the music industry, building a quieter life as far from the chaos of ABBA as possible. Here's the part that makes the ABBA story genuinely extraordinary. While ABBA went silent, the world refused to move on. In 1992, a full decade after the band stopped, ABBA Gold was released, a greatest hits compilation. It became one of the best-selling albums in the entire history of recorded music. Not of its decade, of all time. It has spent over 1,000 weeks on the UK charts, a band that no longer existed, outselling almost everyone who did. Then Mamma Mia arrived, first as a stage musical in 1999, then a blockbuster film in 2008, Meryl Streep, Pierce Brosnan, Colin Firth, a sequel in 2018. Suddenly, ABBA wasn't a memory. They were a living cultural force, introducing their music to kids who weren't born when the band was active. Their music wasn't nostalgic. It was timeless. Those two things are completely different, and ABBA was always the latter. With their legacy only growing, the pressure for a reunion became impossible to ignore, and the money being offered was genuinely absurd. Reports emerged that ABBA turned down offers exceeding $1 billion to reunite and tour. $1 billion. Promoters from every corner of the world were desperate to make it happen. ABBA said no. Björn explained it simply. There was no motivation to perform again. They didn't want to be seen as chasing what they once were. They wanted to be remembered at their peak, four people at the height of their powers, not as a nostalgia act milking a legacy for cash. They chose dignity over money. In an industry that almost never rewards that choice, ABBA made it without hesitation. But then something happened that changed everything. After more than 30 years apart, ABBA reunited privately. The four of them in the same room. Something sparked. In 2021, nearly 40 years after their last studio album, ABBA released Voyage. 10 new songs. No nostalgia tour. No desperate attempt to recapture the past. Just 10 songs from four people who had each lived full, complicated, real lives and still had something genuine left to say. Voyage was a massive success, critically, commercially, emotionally, and alongside it came something no one had ever seen before. ABBA Voyage, a live concert show performed not by the members themselves, but by digital avatars. Avatars, hyper-realistic, technology-driven versions of ABBA as they looked in their 1970s prime, performing every night in a purpose-built arena in London. It was spectacular, it was innovative, and it was pure ABBA, finding a way to do the thing everyone wanted, entirely on their own terms, without compromising a single thing. Björn, now in his late 70s, remains one of music's most respected voices. He advocates for artists' rights, composes selectively, and speaks thoughtfully about the industry he helped shape. Benny is arguably the most musically active. He runs his own record label, works with Swedish folk musicians, and appears to be a man physically incapable of not making music. Because why would he stop doing the thing he loves most? Agnetha lives quietly in Sweden. She has released solo music over the years to warm reception, but remains private, selective, and, by all accounts, genuinely at peace. She found her way back to herself after years when that felt impossible. Frida splits her time between Scandinavia and Switzerland. She stays engaged with environmental causes, occasionally appears at public events, and has spoken openly about how proud she is of what ABBA built and what they managed to rebuild. All four are now in their 70s and 80s. All four built full lives beyond ABBA. And yet ABBA remains the thing the whole world comes back to, every single time. So, why did ABBA really break up? Not one single reason, never is, with a story this human. Two marriages collapsed under the pressure of fame, time, and the thousand quiet ways love can erode. Working daily with people you once loved, and now had to unlove professionally, created an emotional weight that talent alone couldn't carry. Creative burnout after a decade of nonstop output emptied the tank, and four ambitious, gifted people started hearing the call of lives they hadn't yet lived. They didn't explode. They faded, gracefully, honestly, without drama. And then, 4 decades later, they came back. Not for the money, not for the glory, but because the music was still there, still alive inside them, still worth saying. That's the ABBA story. Not a tragedy, not a fairy tale. Something rarer than either. Because in the end, the show may have been scripted, but everything that came after, that was completely, painfully, beautifully real. If this one got you, subscribe and check the description. More stories like this are waiting. The faces you grew up watching and the lives they really lived.